So welcome to another tapping video for you. This time I got a request about boundaries, about specifically wanting a tapping on maintaining boundaries, but I think I'm going to do you one better on the request and talk about boundaries overall too, not just the maintaining of boundaries, but also a tapping to help feel confident in setting your boundaries. And then with that confidence of setting your boundaries, therefore being able to take that confidence in making that first request of setting the boundary into maintaining of that boundary. Because here's the thing. With boundary work, this is what I found with boundary work. As soon as you set those boundaries with people or with situations, you almost immediately have a test on your resolve or how confident you are in sticking to that boundary or saying, like, here's my boundary request and here are going to be the consequences if you don't honor that request. Almost immediately. And this is like about 90% of the time in my own life, when I've had to set a boundary with someone, it's been immediately tested to be like, oh, are you sure? Are you sure you want to set that boundary? Or like, how sure are you? How confident are you? How self-assured are you in both keeping that boundary and maintaining that boundary? So that's the tapping that we've got on deck for today. Also, a reminder that I do live streams every Friday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we do have past replays available so that you can take a look at those videos anytime you want to, at any time, whenever you need that particular topic. And I mention this because we've done at least 2 full episodes of that live stream on boundaries, boundary work, what that is, what it can do. So I would actually encourage you to check out some of those videos so that you feel, a little bit more confident, so you can go into this tapping session already feeling a little bit more confident about what boundaries are, why you should set boundaries, why it's okay to set boundaries with people, what's the difference between a porous boundary or an inflexible boundary, what really the definition is of a healthy boundary, because you know what? It's not rigid, and it's neither not too rigid nor too porous. Healthy boundaries are flexible. But within that flexibility is a structure and the reason for setting the boundary in the first place. But to summarize what boundaries really are, it's to allow people to know you. Allow people to know you and know your preferences and know what you like and what you dislike, so that in setting of those boundaries, you can say, this is who I am, this is what I think, this is what I believe, this is what I need from you in order to maintain a healthy relationship, and also to encourage the other person to ask for those things from you as well. So before we get into the tapping for boundaries in specific, I'm going to intersperse something that I did from the first tapping video that I did, where it gives you a little bit of an introduction to what the tapping points are, not necessarily why it works, but here's what to expect in a tapping video. Now, if you've joined me already for a tapping previously, please feel free to skip over the next minute or so when I'm explaining the tapping points, such as side of the hand, top of the head, all the way down to wrist together, because you already know it. And even if you don't already know it, you could probably skip ahead to get right into the tapping if you feel so inclined, because we're going to be tapping on these points for a little while, and all you have to do really is tap where I do, say what I say. So there's no real way to get it wrong, but if you want to feel a little bit better and know the tapping points beforehand, here you go. But feel free to skip ahead if you would like. So what you do when you're tapping, or what tapping is you tap on these acupressure points. You're going to follow along with me, do what I do, repeat what I'm doing physically on your own body, and then when I'm speaking aloud, I'm going to give you time to echo back what I'm saying. And I do want you to speak it aloud as well. So you're going to tap on the points that I do, and you're going to say what I am saying out loud. It's the combination of these two things, the acupressure and the statements, that create what is tapping, or EFT, the emotional freedom technique. I'll get into it more in a different video about why EFT or tapping works. But yeah, so I have displayed what the tapping points are on the screen as well. So when you can, and I'm going to illustrate it right now too. So this is side of the hand, and this is at the time where we're talking through the issue. So side of the hand can be done this way, and you don't want to, abuse yourself or hit yourself too hard with these points. Just with enough pressure that you can feel it, in the same way that you would get someone's attention at a loud concert if they were standing in front of you and they can't hear you. That's the kind of pressure we're talking about. So this is side of the hand. It helps to talk out the issue, talk through the issue, really tune into the issue. So that's the side of the hand where you would talk about the setup statements. So you would tap on this point, you would repeat after me. Okay, that's side of the hand. Now the points in order with the main round of tapping. Crown of the head, eyebrows, like right where your eyebrows start, temples, under the eye, kind of where your bone is right there, under the nose, under the mouth, right in between the chin and the mouth. Collarbone, so feel for your collarbone and that little divot right there, that's collarbone. Under the arm, so if you wear a bra, where your bra strap hits, right there. And by the way, and that's a one-handed one. And by the way, if you have large tracts of land like I do, and it's difficult for you to reach across and get to the other side, you can feel free to tap on the same side, just right where your bra strap hits. And then final point is wrist to wrist together. So those are the tapping points. Now I'm going through those tapping points really quickly because as you're going through a couple rounds of tapping, you're going to start to realize the pattern, and yeah, so it's pretty easy. All you have to do is tap on the points that I am, follow along with me in the video, and repeat after me, say what I say out loud. In order for this tapping to be as effective as it can be, I would really encourage you to grab a journal and a pen and write down how you feel about boundaries. Do you think that you're good at boundaries? Do you think you're good at setting boundaries? Do you think you're good at maintaining boundaries? And what do boundaries mean to you? What does that word mean to you when someone says boundaries to you? And from that journaling, we can really start to feel our way into the specific issues that come up around setting and maintaining boundaries. Now, I'm going to provide this general tapping for setting boundaries and maintaining boundaries, but I would really encourage you to get specific. Like, as I'm saying things, I might say, even though I feel like I'm really weak at boundaries, I still love and accept and forgive myself. You might hear me say that in this upcoming tapping. And that is because I don't know what your specific issues are surrounding boundaries. Tapping is wonderful, and general tapping can be wonderful, but when you get specific, that's really where the magic happens and where the issues can get resolved. So If you have specific words that came up for you in the journaling that you want to add into the tapping, you can say the words, repeat the words that I'm saying, but then add in whatever it is that's coming up for you, whether it's in the moment as you're doing the tapping or whether it came up for you in the journaling.
So now that we've gotten all the preliminary stuff out of the way, and now that you have some notes on boundaries, specific notes from your journaling, I would encourage you to keep your journal nearby to the page that you wrote on when discussing or thinking about boundaries. Keep that close to you so that when you feel like you might be at a loss for words, or the words that I'm saying that you're repeating don't feel like they quite fit for your situation, go ahead and take a look at what you've journaled about boundaries and sub in, get specific. When you get specific during tapping, it works out so much better and your issues seem to dissipate much quicker when you are specific. And again, I would encourage you, if you're not quite sure about the wording, or if you want to get more in depth, work with a tapping practitioner like myself. And the notes are in this video if you want to book a session with me. All right, grab some water, take a drink, and we're going to start on sleight of hand. So tap on the points that I do and repeat after me. I was never taught boundaries. And I think a lot of people have never been taught boundaries. I wish it was a chorus that was taught in school. Or I wish that my family had been better about teaching about boundaries. And sometimes it's said that our family can push our buttons because they installed those buttons. But just because they installed those buttons doesn't mean that I can't address those things now. And whether I'm 25 or 35 or 65, boundaries are always going to be coming up. And boundary work is always going to be coming up. So I give myself massive compassion for the past, where I didn't advocate for myself, where I didn't have a hard conversation, where I self-abandoned to keep the peace, where I made myself small to keep the peace. I've decided I'm not doing that anymore. And if I want to respect myself, and if I want to feel worthy and confident, then some hard conversations might need to happen around boundaries. Because boundaries are there to tell people what is okay and what's not okay with me. And it doesn't have to be that hard to do. I suspect that I'm making it harder than it has to be. And I suspect that I'm procrastinating on having some difficult conversations because I'm making them bigger in my mind. I'm actually really worried about what's going to happen if I set boundaries with certain people. Will they love me anymore? Will they leave me if I set a boundary? The truth of the matter is, I don't know how they're going to react. I may have an educated guess on how they're going to react. And maybe I'm completely 100% correct. But I won't know until I assert that boundary. I won't know for sure until I have that conversation. And it might be really unfair of me to assume that people are going to think the worst of me if I try and set a boundary with them. Setting boundaries is an act of love towards myself. I'm ready to extend that level of love to myself. I'm not available for people treating me like a doormat anymore. And I also don't need to make a huge dramatic production about it. I can set a boundary and keep it as neutral as possible. Just the facts, ma'am. I want people to truly know me. And for people to truly know me, they need to know what my deal breakers are. They need to know what my boundaries are. They need to know what is okay and what's not okay with me. And if I have this conversation with them, they might feel encouraged to have the same conversation with me, because I know that I'm not perfect. And I know that I've probably crossed their boundaries too. And wouldn't it be better if we're all honest with each other when a boundary is crossed? So I'm feeling my way into those places where I feel resentment. And I'm going to inject those places with lots of love and compassion. And I'm going to do something different. And the way to do something different is to start setting some boundaries, because I love myself enough to do so. Take a deep breath in, hold it, and let it go. Wiggle your arms, wiggle your shoulders. Check in with yourself, see how you're feeling. See how you're feeling about boundaries or the stuff that you've listed. And let's get ready to do the main tapping. You might want to give yourself another sip of water before we start at the top of the head. We're going to now start on the top of the head. I went ahead and took off my hat, even though it's very cute. You can totally tap through a hat too. You don't have to take it off, but I did just for the purposes of this video. So make sure you take a little bit of water in between, check in with yourself as always. And let's start on the top of the head. Again, tap along with me, tap on the points that I'm tapping on, and repeat after me out loud with the words that I'm saying, or again, if you have that notebook handy of where you wrote down your issues around boundaries, please feel free to have your notebook near you so that you can sub in any words to make your tapping a little bit more specific to your own situation. All right, let's go. It's okay that I wasn't taught boundaries. It's not something that we learned in school, but it's something that I can learn to start asserting now. I love myself enough to start working on this aspect of myself. And it may be hard for me to exert boundaries because I'm worried about people's reaction. Are people going to love me if I assert a boundary that they don't necessarily agree with? Am I going to have any friends when I start asserting my boundaries? Am I afraid of disappointing others? All of those things can be true. But I am ready to have the courage to love myself and have those uncomfortable conversations. because I know it's going to be uncomfortable. But I love myself enough at the risk of disappointing others with my boundaries. I'm used to people walking all over me, but I'm not available for that kind of energy anymore. I'm no longer available to set myself on fire to keep other people warm. I'm no longer available for bending over backwards for people, because that results in people not respecting me or valuing my time. When I set boundaries, it is for my own self-care. It is an act of kindness to myself and the people around me. And I don't have to explain or over-explain why I have the boundaries that I do. Because honestly, over-explanation dilutes the strengths of my convictions. And these kind of boundary conversations may not work every time with every person. And I may be stalling on having these conversations because I feel like I need to have the exact right words to be able to unlock this problem that I'm having. But the thing is, I don't need to have the exact right words to start setting boundaries. I have support in setting and maintaining boundaries. I know that I'm not alone in having this problem. And I can even make it easier for myself by just having time boundaries with people. I don't have to be immediately available to answer a question. I can wait 24 hours to respond to a text. I can even turn off my phone. If I turn off my phone to go watch a movie and have that phone off for 2 hours, then why can't I give myself the grace of 24 hours to respond to someone's voicemail? The world is not going to fall apart if I take my time. In fact, it's going to deepen my relationships if I give thoughtful answers to people. An immediate yes and then resentment later is not helping anyone. And the world won't fall apart if I take my time. So even though I've had trouble with boundaries in the past, I still love and accept and forgive myself for having those problems. My boundary issues comes from a really deep place. It may have come from a need to please in order to keep myself safe. It may have been a defense mechanism. But I can create safety in my body and in my mind without indulging in the disease to please. And I can start as small as I want to. And I will. I can start to assert my boundaries in small ways, so that when it comes time for a big boundary conversation, I will have worked my way up to that level of confidence to deal with that. I am becoming a boundary queen. And I don't have to be full of drama or anger to do it. I can ask nicely. And if people don't honor my boundary requests, there are consequences for it. And I shouldn't have to feel the need to not make a boundary request just because I'm worried that I have to then enforce the consequences. Maybe the consequences aren't mine to enforce. Maybe it's simply a removal of myself from the situation. Maybe if a friend is constantly late for dinner or for plans with me, then I don't make plans with them. Boundaries can be as complicated or as simple as I wish them to be. So for right now, I'm making them simple and building up my confidence one boundary situation at a time. I love and honor and forgive myself for past situations where I let people walk all over me. And I'm resolved that in the future, that's not going to happen so much anymore because I am confident in myself and I am worthy of setting boundaries. Take a deep breath in and hold it and let it go. All right, take some more water, drink some more water. Give yourself a little bit of journaling time on how you feel now. Do you feel confident in setting and maintaining boundaries? Because that is the point of this tapping. I really hope you do, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to put my journal to the side, my tapping notes. I really do hope that this tapping helped you, and if you want more specific tapping in the future, feel free to book a session with me at tarotbyhillary.com.